The other day I was at a store and I bought something that cost $38.97. I gave him two 20s, which obviously add to $40, and he had to make change. His cash register wasn't working, but he had a till. And so he had to use a calculator to calculate that I was owed $1.03 and change. And it struck me immediately that this is an incident yet again of where technology has made us stupid. And I experienced this in my own life when I was a young teen. So I want to go back to when I was a kid. And one of the things that my mom did to help teach me arithmetic when I was very, very young is, well, I learned it through sports quite a bit. She would have me figure out the pitcher's ERA or the batter's batting average, or if I'm watching a football game and they say he's done, 7 carries for 46 yards, she would say, so how many yards per carry is that? Or it's very interesting. When I was learning my multiplication tables, the sevens were the first ones I learned because of football. And so I knew 7, 14, 21, 28 a little bit before I learned 6, 12, 18, 24, just because I used them. So one of the things that she would do, and she did this with my siblings too, was when we would go to the grocery store, she might say, so I'm buying groceries for the week and I have $30 to spend. This was a long time ago. I have $30 to spend, so you keep track for me and tell me how much I've spent so far. And so, she would put something in the cart and tell me this is $1.06 and this is 49 cents. And then I would keep a running tally. And this was wonderful on many levels, including the fact that it turned me from, as a friend calls it, a whining appendage into a functioning part of the crew, someone who had a responsibility and took that responsibility very seriously. So when we got to the cash register, and this is before the scan days, as they would have to hit the numbers in, I would, as a challenge, try to add the numbers faster than the cash register. And I was usually able to succeed. And I have such wonderful memories of this. Like, I remember one time at a fabric store, I was adding up the cloth my mom was buying, and the person behind the counter got really excited. I was probably 6. She got really excited and she called out to everybody in the store that they had to come up and watch this little kid do it. And then I went around, and everybody who bought things, I was adding up their purchases, on the fly. And so I had this gift, which I don't think it's not like I had an extraordinary gift. I think that it was practice, and it was because every time I went to the grocery store or wherever, I did this, and other children could do it too. My siblings could do it. But anyway, the point is that I know precisely when I lost the ability to do this. And that is when I was now I said precisely, and now I don't remember which year it was, but I know precisely the event that caused it, which was in about 7th or 8th grade, I got my first calculator. And over the next couple of years, from say 7th to 9th grade, I lost the ability to do math lightning speed in my head. Why? Because I stopped doing it, and instead I started using a calculator. And that is not just indicative, but it is an example of what happens to all of us in ways technology, we can outsource our own internal capacities onto technology, and in so doing lose them. It's no different than being able to walk, and now when you get a car, you're not in as good shape as you were before because you're no longer walking, or any other abilities we lose because we stop using those capacities. It is pretty common knowledge that when cultures become literate, their memory goes down. And also I've read about this in individual cases, that many people, when they learn how to read, they themselves lose their capacity to remember. They don't remember as well. And we are seeing this more and more with computers. I just watched a very good film called Stare Into the Lights, My Pretties, and there was a person in there who's talking about how the internet is also destroying our capacity to remember. And one of the ways is that we no longer have to remember various facts because we can simply look them up. And a great example of this happened before we started recording this, as I was chatting with Marion Ivy, and I said that I recently came across the world's worst poet, which we can do an entire episode on him another time because he's so dreadful. And I couldn't remember his name, even though I've read about him for the past few days. But the reason it didn't matter that I didn't remember his name is because I could simply look him up on Google by looking up poet, White House, workshop, and weather. Because even though he's a terrible poet, or maybe because he's a terrible poet, he gave a workshop at the White House, and one of his poems consists of simply reading accounts of weather, which lets you know what a terrible poet is. But leave that aside. The point is that the internet interferes with our capacity to remember. And I find it extraordinary the way we are systematically outsourcing our inherent capacities to machines, not only because it makes us stupid, and I don't mean that pejoratively, I mean that it literally makes us less intelligent, and it makes us so mentally and intellectually we are not in as good shape, but also because it ties to everything we've ever talked about authoritarian and democratic techniques. Because if you have outsourced your intelligence or parts of your intelligence to machines, and those machines are removed, you've lost your capacity for that intelligence altogether. You have been made dependent upon machines for various parts of our life, including subtracting 3897 from 40. Well, here's another way to look at this first, which is instead of saying outsourcing, I can also say sacrifice. And this culture is sacrificing the natural world on the altar of machines. And if you made a graph of how many machines there are and the ascendancy of machines, and you put on that same graph how many wild beings there are on the planet and the health of the planet, you would see that those are mirror images of each other, with one going up as the other goes down, because the world is being killed to serve and to create machines, authoritarian techniques. And we can easily argue that our own mental capacities are also being sacrificed upon this altar of the machine. Now, what I was going to say a minute ago is I don't expect for this video by itself to stop the religion of the machine that has been increasing in ascendancy for the past several thousand years. But I think what I would hope is that individuals who do watch this attempt to start becoming aware of how machines and our reliance upon these machines interferes with our physical and mental health and fitness.